Welcome to A Pair of Bookends, the book club you can carry anywhere. I'm your host, Hannah MacDonald, and I'll be bookending the conversation with some of the most exciting voices from the bookish world. Welcome to another episode in our debut Spotlight series, where we shine a light on the freshest authors and their work. Today, that spotlight is on Hattie Williams and her debut novel, Bitter Sweet. Listeners, you know how much I love an affair novel, and I fell completely in love with this one. It's a story of power dynamics, friendship, and finding hope in dark times, and it's perfect for fans of Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason and Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. Hattie Williams is a novelist, screenwriter and journalist based in East London. She left education in her teens to pursue a career as a musician and went on to tour Europe extensively, make 3 studio albums and work as a composer, with her tracks still regularly featured on TV and streaming services across the world. In her mid-20s, Hattie accidentally found herself working in publishing, and an admin temping job turned into a 12-year career where she ended up working with some of the biggest authors in the world. She is the former producer of the Iceland Noir Literary Festival, and her Substack Big Feelings is the perfect place to read more of her wonderful musings on, you guessed it, big feelings, but also brilliant insights into her writing process and the world of publishing. Her debut novel, Bitter Sweet, is out everywhere, but published by Orion in the UK and Bantamdale in the US. Here to chat all about it, welcome Hattie to A Pair of Bookends.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. I met you at the Serenity Booksellers launch. No, it wasn't the launch, but it was an event that you did there, and it was wonderful. And I was so excited to try and get you on the podcast from that moment onward. So I'm really pleased that we've managed to make this happen.
Oh, I know, me too. That was such a special event. I think it was like a couple of days before the book actually came out.
Yes.
Yeah, and I had like the worst journey ever.
It was the worst travel, wasn't it?
I got to the bookshop, my first bookshop event, and everybody was just sitting down. They'd had like 2 bottles of wine waiting for me because the trains had gone so badly. But what a special bookshop Serenity is.
Oh my God, it's amazing. I absolutely love Kelly and Chris and
Yeah,
David.
yeah, all of those guys. Yeah, it was a really, really lovely kind of first event to kick everything off. And it was
100%. You handled it like an absolute pro.
Oh, I was very sweaty. I
I
was
mean, the
sweat.
travel in this.
Yeah, underneath all of that. And I think tried to pick up my glass of like wine at one point, and my hand was just shaking so bad. And I was just like, I'm just gonna put that down again. But I think it was just, yeah, the stress of the travel, because we thought at one point I wasn't going to make it at all because the trains were
No.
shut down. So yeah, and I didn't have any signal on the train, so I was like, couldn't really just tell anyone. It was, what a way to start.
Yeah, I mean, the joys of transport in the UK, just, yeah, never ending.
Yeah, it's just have to like plan to be 3 hours early everywhere you go, and you should get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've got lots of other more important things to be doing than spending your life on travel.
Oh, no, I love it. I love doing events. I love going around the UK.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just don't like being stuck on trains.
No, no, of course.
On a stage talking to people about your book.
I love that. Before we get into you and your book, I do love to start by asking what you're currently reading. So could you tell us?
Yes, I can tell you. It's an amazing book, but I haven't quite figured out how to pronounce Neve's surname properly. But it is this book, Ordinary Saints, called by, I think it's Neve Llewellyn, but I'm probably pronouncing that
I
wrong.
think that sounds like a good pronunciation.
It is so good. I've been in a real reading rut lately, and this book is digging me out of it. It's about a young queer woman whose late brother is made into a saint. It's so human and funny. It's so dry, the humor, and it's an absolutely beautiful book, and her writing is amazing. And I'm interviewing her at Waterstone Streatham in London in a few weeks, so I'm really excited to meet her because she seems like a very, very cool person.
Yeah, she does. I listened to her BBC Radio 2 book club interview, and her humour completely came across, and she was
Yeah.
such a great speaker. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited to read that book. How do you find I'm assuming you'll be asked to do a few different events where you're interviewing other authors. How do you find that, or is it quite easy because you're both writers?
I think it is. I think also because I was a director of a literary festival
Yeah.
the Noir Literary Festival, takes place in Iceland every November for a number of years. And so I did a lot of kind of chairing of events
Amazing.
through that, often kind of like chairing a panel or stepping in last minute if somebody couldn't, do it, or kind of interviewing people. So I think I'm quite comfortable with it. I think also because I worked in publishing for so
Of
long,
course, yeah.
I've been used to going to events. But I do also, I put a lot of effort into the research and really try to think about how I'm going to facilitate that conversation in a way that I would want to be facilitated.
Of course, yeah.
The writer. And also Jenny Godfrey, I don't know if you know Jenny Godfrey,
Yeah.
who Suspicious Things. She's done a few events with me, and she is such an excellent chair, like facilitator. So I've actually learned quite a lot from Jenny as well, which just goes to show that you're always learning, aren't you? There's every day's a school
100%.
day.
100%. Well, let's hope that I can pull this one off. I haven't read Jenny's book, which is, it feels like blasphemy in
We
the
found the
publishing
one
industry.
person in the UK that hasn't
No,
read that book.
I know. It's absolutely shocking, and I'm so eager to read it. I just haven't got round to it yet.
Apply
Um,
for it. It's like you'll do it in 2 days. It's
yeah,
like,
everyone says how amazing it is. I actually think I am the only person in the UK that hasn't read it.
yeah, I think that whoever's doing the sales numbers would probably agree on that. It's sold so well. She's such a generous, wonderful woman and writer, and I think the kind of the warmth of her personality really comes across in her writing as well. She's a little bit magic, Jenny Godfrey.
I love that so much. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to get to it now.
Yeah.
I'll come and tell you when I have. You've had such an incredible multi-hyphenate career. At what point did you know that you wanted to write a novel? Is that something that you've always wanted to do?
Yeah, I think it is something that I always wanted to do, but I don't think it's something that I thought I could do. So I think there was a real disconnect there. Obviously working with all the amazing writers I worked with when I was working in publishing and kind of through the festival meant that I spent a lot of time kind of understanding that writers are just normal people who sit down and get the work done. But I think there is still, before you've written a book, there is still something about the idea of writing a novel that seems so far out of reach and so impossible.
Hmm.
And so I think that was kind of how I kind of viewed it. I tried to write a few bits here and there, but I'd never known the ending. So I get like 30,000 words in. I've written myself into so many corners. I then had to just kind of give it up and throw it on the scrap heap. And then during COVID, I did this brilliant course called Write Like a Girl, which is amazing. It's an online course. I only actually made it to the first two of the 6 sessions because I was so pregnant and miserable, so much going on. But that really just taught me that you just have to show up at your computer every day.
Yeah.
You just have to like chip away at that word count, to write yourself out of corners, try not to think yourself out of corners. Yeah, right through writer's block. It just taught me basically that so many of the reasons I thought I couldn't write a novel were not actual reasons. It was just basically procrastination, either around kind of self-confidence or just not kind of wanting to commit the time. So, as soon as you've had a teacher saying that's not actually a reason not to write, that's not a reason not to write, that's not a reason not to write, you kind of go, oh, okay, actually, maybe I do just need to sit down and do the work. And then fortunately, I had the idea that I had an ending for, and I think I think if you're a writer like me, you need to know the ending before you start writing. So as soon as I knew the ending, I wrote Bittersweet in 7 weeks once I started writing
Oh
it.
my gosh, 7 weeks.
Yeah, and my second novel, I did a first draft in 7 weeks again because I could just see the ending, and I planned it all out. I'm not a pantser at all. I plan out like meticulously to a 3 act structure, and also that means that then if I do get a little bit stuck, I can jump ahead and write a chapter later in the book.
That's so smart that you do plan ahead and that you can, jump about if you've got that 3 act structure set in place. I am currently attempting to write my debut, and it's very scary. And I'm almost at the 25,000 word mark,
Oh, that's a massive achievement.
but scary. And I think the writing advice that really helped me was, I think she's called Amy McNee, and she's got oh my God, I can't remember. I'll link her Instagram in the show notes, listeners. I'm sorry, I can't remember what her Instagram is right now, but she does a lot of things where she writes on like pieces of paper, and it's like a quote thing that she's come up with, and it'll just be pictures of her holding up like inspiration for writers or creatives, and it's just about just doing the thing, and rather than making it such a big deal, and eventually you end up avoiding it,
Yeah.
just sitting down and doing it. And she I listened to her on a podcast, and she was saying like, for people wanting to write, just write 300 words a day. That's like nothing, but it's getting getting yourself to actually do the thing each day and make it a habit. And actually, like 300 words isn't anything. And I started out trying to do that, and I was like, oh my God, I'm actually getting so much written because I'm not putting this pressure on myself to sit down and get the whole thing written in one day.
So true. And also, like, you wouldn't expect to be able to run a marathon if you hadn't trained, right?
Exactly.
You have to work those muscles in your brain a little bit every day to become nimble with words and with what you're trying to do. So at the, I've got my Substack, which you so kindly mentioned earlier, but because I'm writing essays constantly now, I've now written like I think 21 or 22 essays for Substack over the last kind of 3 months. I am now able to write kind of a first draft for Substack, or if I'm writing a feature for the Times, I can now do it in about 40, 45 minutes just because I'm doing it
Yeah.
constantly. So it's just very, very available to me when I need to do it. I can just slip into it, move into it, and do it. And that, has been really life-changing. But yeah, it is just showing up and doing the work. I know that people that want to write often see it as being this kind of impossible thing. And even actually, I think writing a novel is impossible. If I think when I'm currently writing my third and I have to go back to it, and I'm like, writing a novel is too hard, it's impossible. So I just remind myself, writing 750 words a day is possible. And
It
that's what
is.
a novel is. It's just a series of 300 words a day, 750 words a day,
Yeah.
whatever that cumulatively ends up being a novel. But yeah, as long as you've got the ending. And I think that's the thing about stories as well for me. Not everybody feels like this, but for me, my favorite books, the favorite stories are the ones with the best endings. And so I always just, go to the idea that it's got the best ending and the one I can kind of see a way through. There's still lots of surprises on the way. You move away from your plan, your characters will surprise you. You'll have more ideas along the way. But yeah, I think, I just want as many women to write as possible, basically. I want to break down this idea of writing being this super intellectual thing. You have to have an MFA, and I left school, at 18. I don't have a degree. I have a couple of A levels. And I think that, as women, especially, we are quite hard on ourselves about, not being interesting enough, not having the right experience, but actually our viewpoint, our take on the world, what we've lived through, that is often more than enough to make a novel. And I just really want to encourage women to draw on their own experience and just try and write and just try and do those 250 words a day. Try and find yourself 10 or 15 minutes, even if it's on the note app of your phone as you're on the bus or brushing your teeth, just working those muscles a little bit every day. I want everybody to have the joy of writing that I have. And I think so many people want to write.
I love that so much. And I think it's so true. It does sometimes feel like, I don't want to say inaccessible, but I suppose it does in a way. I've especially found that, I'm working class, I'm an actor and I'm a writer, and I've often felt like the art spaces don't kind of belong to me, or, this industry doesn't belong to me because, I feel like it belongs to people that are from very different backgrounds, that have connections and wealth and knowledge that I maybe don't have, or they're privately educated, and it feels like, they know things that I don't know, or that they understand things that I don't understand. And rather than just trying to learn it, it just feels like a barrier kind of thing. It sort of puts the fear in you, and it stops you from doing the thing. But no, it's really encouraging to hear you say that actually
Yeah.
no, like,
I mean, I think so much of what I write about, I mean, I've only written two and a half novels, but what I'm always writing about is kind of working class people in the arts and the kind of ideas of what people think working class is versus what working class actually is. And I think that is the barrier
yeah,
more than anything is people, when I worked in publishing, I consider myself from a working class background. There was a period in my time where we had a bit of money when I was a kid, but then I was on free school meals for a really long time. Like, I lived in an ex-council, like, we didn't, there was all sorts of stuff going on.
this is also a thing. We also feel like we need to explain ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like,
I promise,
it's
like, I
quite
promise.
justified. I think it's also because, yeah, you spoke to somebody the other day who had me on Women's Hour, and she's like, "Oh, it's so funny. Like, whenever I've met you, I've never said you're working class." And I was just like, okay. And she is very working class, and I just felt kind of like, oh, am I not aligned with you? I think, yeah, I think class is such a weird thing. It's such a
Such
weird,
a weird thing.
so outdated, and I don't think like kind of our understanding of class really fits around what society actually looks like now. And I grew up in a house full of art and politics and music and creativity, and not big tellies and chicken nuggets, which is what I think a lot of those kind of publishing people think of working class as being. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm endlessly interested in it, and kind of the mindset, and especially kind of, how people get treated in publishing. I think publishing has got a lot better. I think publishers are specifically looking for more working class voices now and trying to look to, to have a bit more representation. But yeah, it's just hard. I mean, ultimately you generally need to have a little bit of financial freedom to be able to write. It's all very well saying just find 10, 15 minutes a day. And, for 95% of people, I'm sure they can. But, there are also people working multiple jobs, single
Yeah.
parent, people with no space or no room, and all of those things are massively a barrier. There's a writing podcast I love listening to where the host will kind of talk to authors about their writing space, and they will talk about like this, garden office or this kind of spare room or whatever. There's me just kind of hunched in my living room, like next to laundry and just like with bits of pasta stuck to my sock from the kid. It's like nobody's going to want me on that
I
podcast.
did read you did an interview for the Women's Prize, I think it was, and it's on their website, and you were talking about your writing space, and I just absolutely loved the stuff that it was just so relatable.
Is that yeah, there is no room of one's own in this house. But yeah, I can't. I mean, I get a lot. I love I love the Paris Review like magazine, but also have a great Instagram, and it has loads of brilliant kind of writing tips and bits. And I can't remember. I saw one the other day that was just basically like if a writer waits for the perfect conditions to write, then they will never write a word in their
Yeah.
life. It's like you don't have that. You just have to get on with it,
I mean,
basically.
you've got a very creative, beautiful space, and I love that you and your child do the drawing on the, what is it, the
Yeah,
drawing or the painting on the wall. You've got the
yeah,
big piece of
yeah,
paper. I'm
yeah.
obsessed with that. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, I'll send you. I'll show it in a minute.
Amazing.
It's on the opposite wall, but.
Oh, that is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's really nice. I mean, yeah, we keep changing them every weekend, and
Oh my
yeah,
God, I love that. And that is a home. That is,
yeah,
that
yeah,
looks like home to me.
yeah. But it's so funny, isn't it? It's like it's a
Yeah,
total mess by the end of a Saturday afternoon, and then if someone's coming around, you like clean it, clean away all the toys, all of the joy, all of the pain, all of the creative, beautiful messiness of family life. Let's
yeah.
put everything in boxes, wipe everything, clean it, and try and put it back to being a normal place.
Yeah, I mean, my friends came over the other day and I was cleaning out the recycling bins. I've never done that. Like, what am I doing? Like, why am I still like, what?
I mean, if it means you don't have to write 350 words,
Exactly. Yeah, anything
people
to
that
avoid
write that for the third time in a week just to not writing.
anything to avoid it. I would love it if you could give the listeners a summary of what Bittersweet is about because I have so many questions, but I feel like that is the best place for us to start.
Okay, Bittersweet it's my debut novel. It's a story of Charlie, who's a 23-year-old publicity assistant who's just starting out in her first job in London in an independent publishing house. And that is where she meets Richard Aveling, who is the 56-year-old married, incredibly famous author that has defined his generation. And he is a writer that Charlie has obsessed over since she was a teenager, and her late mum introduced her to his work. Richard and Charlie meet, and Richard pulls Charlie into a really secretive, coercive affair relationship that lasts about a year. And the book follows them over the course of the year and examines the different ways that Charlie's life, professional life, emotional life, romantic life, inner life unravels off the back of this affair. And it's told by Charlie looking back at these events kind of 15 years on. So she's, yeah, kind of looking back with a bit of distance at kind of what happened in that kind of monumental year in her life.
And it is a book that I absolutely adored. I absolutely inhaled this book and I didn't want it to end and I just kept putting it down so that it could last longer. I was absolutely devastated that it finished. And I feel like it is one of those books that I'm going to want to return to in the future. It's wonderful and I am a massive fan of affair novels. And I said to my boyfriend, I was like, oh, this is about an affair. And he was like, oh, I'm so surprised. Because I'm just obsessed with them. I don't know what it is.
Pretty
Um,
known though, isn't it? Like when your partner's just like, oh,
yeah,
obviously, you're like, okay, yeah,
yeah, cool. I've really
yeah,
made this a thing for myself.
yeah, I love it.
Why did you want to explore an affair? Is this something that you also like reading? Were you interested in that type of dynamic? Where did that aspect come from?
I really want to tell you that I set out to write this book with a very clear idea of what I wanted to say and what I wanted to write. But it hasn't happened. I just had this idea, which is the first chapter of the book where Richard and Charlie meet. And I had, I think, very, very visually, and this scene just came to me in my head, like as if I was watching it in a film. And that conversation and how it evolved basically just kickstarted me to write the novel. But I feel like the story just kind of laid out in front of me, the characters laid out in front of me. It just kind of appeared, which
I
is
love
really
that.
annoying. I know it's really annoying though, isn't it? Because it's like, I don't know, we kind of want to understand process and kind of intention. I think that I often only really see kind of the intention in what I've written after I've written it.
I think it shows that you're a visual writer, and I think that's a really interesting thing because for me, I could see all of this, so it's clearly, I think that shows up in the reader's experience. You know, I could visualize every single one of the scenes in this book, and I also, said before that you're a screenwriter, and I do hope that there could be an adaptation at some point, but. Yeah, maybe I can ask that later, but
Yeah, I couldn't possibly tell you.
you couldn't possibly tell me. That's great. I would be thrilled if that was the case. But yeah, I think, I could visualize all of the scenes in this book. And I think the inspiration for books come to writers in various different ways. And the fact that you just visualize this one scene and then you've produced this is so incredible because, you could have had this idea for this one scene and then nothing sort of came of it. But, you've wrote this beautiful story.
Thank you. I think also what I did with this, as I've mentioned, I tried and failed to write a few kind of books before, and those were much more kind of high concepts, like Margaret Atwood type things, which is what I thought you needed to do to be a literary writer. And with this book, I just kind of said, you know what, I'm going to write this just for myself, and I'm going to put a lot of my own life and my own experience in it, and I'm not going to be embarrassed about that. I'm not going to allow myself to feel exposed, which is why I think I often shied away from writing about my own experience. So I just wrote about publishing. I wrote about grief. I wrote about mental health. I wrote about class. I wrote about all of these things that were so present in my life, especially in my kind of early 20s. And I think by kind of allowing myself to do that, I was able to find my own voice because I was writing, kind of essentially about things that I knew inside out. Charlie isn't me. She's very different to me. But a lot of what she goes through are things that I went through. I didn't have an affair with a really exciting kind of older married author,
Damn
unfortunately.
it.
That's quite disappointing. But yeah, I think writing what you know, and I think maybe it took me being, I was 38 when I wrote this book, which is, comparatively young for writing. It's one of the only careers you can get into at 40 and be one of the younger ones. But I do think there are also a lot of kind of younger, really exciting writers coming out now. And I think it just took me to get to that point in my life before I felt that I gave less of a shit. I give zero fucks what anyone thinks about me these days. And I think earlier than that point in my life, I cared too much about being exposed and to write really from the heart and write really personally and find my voice. But with this, it's just like, yeah, I don't give a shit. This is me. This is stuff that's gone on. And then in the editing process, I layered more kind of fiction into it, and I took some stuff out and decided that's a bit too exposing, that's a bit too real. But yeah, I think that's kind of what happened there. But yeah, interestingly, what everything I write, the movies that I write, the books that I write are all about young women overcoming trauma. And I think that is essentially what I'm most interested in people is kind of how we overcome things that have happened to us in our kind of formative years, in our childhoods, in our adolescence, and how that kind of shapes us as adults. So although I didn't kind of go into it with like a clear thematic idea of what I was trying to write about, I think those themes are very present and very clear in what I've written, which is, I should just say that, oh yeah, I'm really, really intellectual and smart, and I wanted to write this really fascinating social commentary on the arts and class. But yeah, it's just stories, isn't it? It's just stories that come to me, characters that come to me, and I just like putting them on pages.
I mean, you are very intellectual and smart, and that's very clear with this book. And I was so pleased to see, we mentioned class before, but I was so pleased to see a working class woman working in the arts written on the page. Could you tell us a little bit about why that representation was important to you and the way you brought it into the book?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of found myself working in publishing in my mid 20s, and I'd never really considered publishing a career. I don't have a degree. I'd, been working as a musician and just, kind of started an admin temp job at Pam Macmillan for kind of a couple of weeks, sorting out their spreadsheets, and they liked me and kept me. I think it was mainly because I'm 5'9", which is the exact right height to wear the Gruffalo mascot costume. Um, it was children's publishing looking after lovely Julia Johnson and the Gruffalo. So
Oh
I think
my
they did
God.
a good job. But just like, you're tall, not too tall. Yeah, I was really, I grew up in, like kind of around bohemian artsy people, like lots of social workers and kind of like poets and artists and teachers and stuff like that. So I wasn't like, I didn't have like a horrific kind of financial upbringing, and I was, exposed to the arts a lot. But the kind of people I met in publishing I'd never met before in my life. I
Mm.
cannot believe that these people really existed. I felt like everyone owned a house, like in some amazing part of London, these like 20, 25-year-olds. Everyone had been to Oxbridge, Durham. The language used, the reference points, I was so far outside of all of it. But I was at the time totally enamored by it. I wanted desperately to be a part of this. I was like, this seems amazing. Everyone's so happy, everyone's so together, everyone's got money, everyone's, really well read. And so I tried desperately hard to fit in. And I think I've been trying to do that in my life constantly. I remember like even when I started secondary school, when I moved schools, when I tried to be in bands, all of it has been this feeling of being an outsider trying to fit in. I think a lot of us feel like that.
100%.
That's who I wanted to write this book for, really. The thing I love most about literature and books is feeling like I can see my experience reflected back on the page. And, publishing in this setting, not only gave me a chance to kind of write about how I felt in those jobs and how I felt for those, really felt for 12 full years working in house. I felt like an outsider, kind of clawing at the edges and that I didn't fit in. And I wanted to write about that feeling. And I wanted to write about that in a way that I hoped other people would connect with. And I think hopefully what I've done is not make it too specific to publishing. And
No, I think it will resonate with anyone that's struggling to fit in any sort of space, and I found it really relatable. And there was a line that I've written down where you write, everyone seemed to me to be connected, existing in a web that I had no knowledge or understanding of. And I think it's that. It's feeling like everyone knows something that you don't, feeling like you've been locked out of this secret and
yeah.
you can't get a kind of handle on it, which is a really like horrible feeling to have, but I think it happens for so many of us. So yeah, it was just really refreshing to read about that.
I think though, just to add to that though, I don't think that feeling in publishing is exclusive to being from a certain class. I think a lot of people in publishing and the arts feel that for there are many, many different reasons.
Yeah,
I think it's a universal feeling. I think a lot of people that do fit in probably feel like they don't fit in. The
yeah,
person I was looking at in the room going, they fit in, they understand everything. They're probably thinking, I don't understand anything. I don't fit in here at all. And I think that's really hard. I think that's one of the reasons why we're all so anxious. Also think when you add in an extra layer to that, where you are dealing with, mental health issues,
hmm,
depression, anxiety. So you're trying to fit in, you're trying to be somebody else, and then you're terrified you're going to lose your job because publishing is so competitive.
yeah,
These mental health problems, and so you're showing up to work even when you shouldn't. You're claiming headaches or migraines when you're just like unable to get out of bed. It's really hard.
yeah,
It's really hard. Publishing's a hard place to work. I don't know. I think what really summarizes it is this idea of new adults. So I'm sure you've heard this lots, kind of through the podcasting work you do in publishing, this idea of kind of new adult books that kind of focus on people aged kind of 18, 19 to 23,
yeah,
24. I think this period is a really interesting point in our lives because we're out of uni, we are suddenly being treated as adults, having to pay rent, we're doing our first jobs, and yet you just still feel like a kid. You've got no idea,
100%.
no idea, and you have to sit there pretending to be a grown up, and it is this incredible learning curve where I think a lot of people really, really struggle. And yeah, I think, these kind of hard workplaces, these really intense environments where it's, yeah, super competitive and the stakes are very high, or you're made to feel the stakes are very high, even if you're in PR, it's like, if we don't get this done, we're going to lose this client, this book's going to fail. It's just a lot of pressure on young people, I think.
100%. And you're still muddling your way through. And Charlie, your protagonist, is 23. And even at that point, I look back at me at 23 and I didn't know what I was doing. I was just muddling my way through. And I still feel like that now I'm 30. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
Ever goes away. I think the only thing that has changed with me, I still feel like I've got no idea what I'm doing.
That's reassuring.
Yeah, somebody handed me my baby when I was 38, and I was like, I'm too young to have a kid. I was like, I'm 30. I still think that feeling never goes away for some of it. The only thing is that you just stop caring so much what other
Yeah.
people think, and
Well,
that's so liberating and joyous.
that is really reassuring to hear. I'd like to not care as much for sure. I think the wonderful thing about the publishing world, because I don't think you shy away from the flaws in that industry, like within any part of the arts, there's many flaws there, and you don't shy away from that. But the wonderful thing about her working in this world is the people that she ends up becoming friends with, and she has these beautiful relationships with Ophelia and Eddie, who she ends up living working with, and also her, would you say her senior in publicity, Cecile? What was the inspiration for those characters?
Right. So I have wonderful experiences of friendship. I have amazing people, and one of the best things for me about working in publishing was the people I met along the way that are still my best friends. You know, kind of my wedding was full of people from publishing that I met. It's like my phone, my best friends, all of, we have gorgeous, gorgeous relationships. And I think that women are told repeatedly that other women will try and drag them down.
Hmm.
There's a whole kind of idea about women not supporting women. And I think that a lot of fiction supports that. A lot of kind of the antagonists in fiction, especially these kind of books about kind of millennial women, yeah, the antagonists, the kind of the conflicts are driven for kind of female friendship. And I wanted to do the exact opposite of that because that is not my experience of women and of friendship and of people that I've worked with. They're obviously like terrible people that I've worked with. I worked with some really awful people. But overall, my experience has been really good. And I also wanted to just write about that joyous, chaotic, messy point in your 20s where you're living in house shares and you're working crazy jobs and no one's got any money. And somehow you manage to get drunk all the time, even though you've got no money. And somehow you still don't get hangovers. And how beautiful that can be. But also, Charlie's arc in the novel, is kind of a downward spiral. She's dealing with some very, very serious stuff in her life, trauma, kind of sexual trauma and grief, and then this coercive relationship, and she really unravels.
Hmm.
I wanted to surprise people by showing the kind of friendships and support and love that I've had when I've been very unwell, which has been that people will drop absolutely everything to be there with you and support you and get you through. And it's quite hard for people like me to kind of let people in and let them do that. And I want
Hmm.
an example and a lesson of what happens when you let other people lift you up and take care of you. So I wanted that to be kind of something that hopefully people take away from the book, that if they are in trouble emotionally or they're having a really bad time, that they will turn to their friends and ask them for that help because people generally surprise you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes me want to cry thinking about what Ophelia does for her in a particularly difficult
Yeah.
time that she's having. She does really go above and beyond for her. And I think that's really special. It's a really special relationship in the book. And, I definitely find it hard to ask for help. I think a lot of us do. It's a really scary thing.
Really scary, especially when your self-esteem is really low and you're feeling really depressed because you feel like nobody wants you in their life at
Yeah.
all. So to then be able to reach out to somebody and say, please help me,
Hmm.
is nigh on impossible, really. But yeah, I think, the arc. So obviously there is a prologue to this book, so I'm not giving anything away. We know that Charlie's all right. I think it's really important for me when I write a book to let, people kind of know something about the ending so they can enjoy the journey of how they get there rather than worrying all the time about where they're going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Charlie is in big trouble, and the people around her really, really come through for her.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hope that people take a positive message from that.
No, definitely. Grief, as you've said, is a big part of this book. As you mentioned, Charlie's mum died when she was 16, and I think grief shows up in a variety of ways in the book. It never sort of leaves her. And the really beautiful thing about her mum is that whilst she's not there in physical form, as the reader, we always feel her presence on the page. And I thought that was a really special thing. And I wanted to ask you about writing grief and why you think it found its way into this novel.
Yeah, I mean, this is a grief novel. It's funny because people are like, oh, it's, I think some people think it's a novel about her relationship with Richard, but really it's not. It's about a relationship with her mother and with grief.
Mm,
So I lost my mum when I was 18, and I really wanted to, I think I needed to write about it. I
yeah.
needed it out of my system. It's the most significant, I probably shouldn't say it's the most significant thing that's ever happened to me now. I've had my own child. Having my own child is probably on a par with how significant it was for me to lose my mum. If it had a monumental, catastrophic effect on my life and who I've become as a person. Everything I've done has really been as a result of that loss.
Hmm.
And writing about it was just this incredibly cathartic thing. And I put a lot of my mom into this book. There are things that she really said to me, things that we did together, that yeah, are literally word for word on the page.
Oh,
And
I
as
love
somebody
that.
It's really nice. Like it's been really lovely that she's been a big part of the PR as well. I did a big piece for the Sunday Times on her that had these huge photos of her, and her friends got in touch and they were just like, "Oh my God, it's like you're bringing her back to life again with this book." So it's been a really beautiful and lovely thing. I think I could probably only do it because I just had my own baby. So my baby was 7 months old when I started writing this book, and I think I
Wow.
was able to because I'd had this for me, having a child was a very healing experience. I didn't think it would be. I thought it would probably send me into a downward spiral about my own grief, but actually my baby looks just like my mum. Like she's got the same colouring. She doesn't look anything like me or my husband, which is really annoying. But yeah, it's been this really beautiful transformative thing. And I think writing that book was for me the kind of the last point in my kind of grief journey. I think I will obviously always grieve my
Of
mum.
course, yeah.
And there'll be days it still hits me, but I don't feel under I think I describe grief in Bittersweet as being like a familiar, kind of a bird or a cat or something that's kind of hovering
Yeah.
over you, shitting on you whenever it decides to. And I feel like that's gone since I wrote the book.
Oh my God, you're healed. No, I'm kidding.
But it honestly is. It's like I had a baby and wrote a novel about it, and now I feel much better about it.
Oh, well, that's amazing.
Writing is, I know it shouldn't be therapy, but for me, it is kind of therapy. I work out a lot of stuff. And also, I've had some incredibly beautiful messages from people that have been through grief or lost their mum or they're going through it right now that have read and related to the book or the PR that I've done around being kind of a motherless mother and, the kind of challenges of that. And that makes me feel really good. It just makes me feel good to know that people are taking something from this and feeling a little bit less alone in their own grief. Because it's
Yeah,
a universal of emotions, isn't it?
it's one of the worst. It's the worst emotion that we can go through, and yeah, I think it's really beautiful the way that you wrote about her relationship with her mum, and I think you describe it with Charlie as she has. I think she says at the start of the book there's three specific before and after moments in her life. And it is that sort of thing with loss. It's like the person that you were before the fact, and then it's the person that you are after the fact, and it can completely change you. But it's not an easy thing, and it shows up for different ways for different people. But I thought that the way you explored it was, yeah, beautiful, really beautiful.
Yeah, I think like when you go through something like that, like a part of you stalls at that point, like you're suspended,
Yeah,
frozen in time. So there's a part of me that is 18, suspended in air, frozen in time, that will always just kind of
yeah,
be there because, that moment passes, the person dies, and you are transformed so much from that person that you will
mhm,
never be the same again. But you become kind of, I think you take on kind of more personalities, like the more grief you go through because each one stalls a part of you and then you have to move on from it but you can't kind of go back and yeah it really messes with your development especially when you're a child.
yeah. I can imagine. I return to Richard? Well, I think the thing with Richard is that the author that Charlie has this affair with is, I think there is a part of her that feels connected to her mum because she's the person that introduced her to Richard's work. So I think there's a really nice connection there in the, maybe not really nice, but she almost doesn't want to ever lose that relationship because it feels somehow tied to her mum, I think. Would you say that's about right?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a number of things about Richard that make Charlie vulnerable. Obviously, there's the kind of the power dynamic at work where
Yes.
he's got a lot of power over her there. He's got a lot of power over her because he is obviously incredibly famous. But then there is also this layer of power because she is a fan. She's like a super fan. She's obsessed with his writing and, been obsessed with him in the way, kind of normal teenagers get obsessed with people. The problem is that, yeah, she is stalled at kind of 16 after having lost her mum. Yeah, then she actually meets him, and that's just, it doesn't happen very often that
Hmm.
people are obsessed over that you kind of find yourself in a situation where you are meeting them, and yeah, it was interesting that relationship to kind of write about because there are so many reasons that Charlie gets drawn to him. The main one is, of course, is that she feels desperately sad and lonely and unanchored, and so in the novel, Charlie's mom was married to her stepdad, and but it was very confusing because she's now got a new part. He's got a new partner, so this is very like
So it's a very
messy
complicated family, yeah.
family, yeah, where there's no kind of bloodline left for Charlie, who is a vulnerable 23-year-old. So
Hmm.
she doesn't always see the love where the love is being given to her. Like her stepdad really wants her to be close.
Hmm.
Eddie and Ophelia, her best friends, want her to be close. Even Cecile, her boss, wants her to talk to her, but she doesn't go to any of those like healthy places for
Hmm.
love and support. She goes to Richard, which is, I think, something probably most women can relate to, that we've gone towards the guy that we shouldn't be going towards, in place of the people that do love us.
100%. Do you think that Charlie's sort of admiration that she's always had for him, do you think that distorts her view of him?
Massively, yeah, like to the to the point that when she sees him in person, she's imagining this photo of him age 26 on the back of his books, not the 56-year-old man in front of
Hmm.
her. She fantasizes sexually about the idea of Richard. She's constantly obsessing over how he looks. She thinks about him being on TV, on the radio, doing events. That's when she's really attracted to him. When she's
Hmm.
actually in bed with him, she's kind of grossed out by this like overweight, 56-year-old guy who does not take care of himself, who drinks and smokes and doesn't really exercise. So yeah, she's very much, I mean, Charlie's a total fantasist. She has
Yeah.
these long, kind of multi-layered, like multi-story kind of ideas that she has where she, kind of imagines being married to Richard and, where they're going to live. And, at the same time, she imagines when her mum comes back from the dead, how she's going to explain to everyone
Yes.
what her mum's been. She's just got this very soft, young, vulnerable imagination that really runs away with itself. Yeah, she's really messed up, poor little Charlie, isn't she?
I mean, I can definitely relate to having an imagination that runs away with itself.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
very me. But
I mean, it makes for great novel writing,
oh
but
yeah, 100%. But I found it really funny the moments where she imagines her mum coming back and being like, "How do I explain this?" And it's
uh,
obviously a really sad part of her grief journey, but it was very funny.
it's kind of funny, like when she just imagines, like, he doesn't reply to her email, and she's just like, oh, she just like imagines like moving to Scotland and like taking on a new identity. Like,
I've
it's
been
like, can't
there.
see that. Yeah, I mean, we've all done it. We've all.
Yeah.
The obvious solution is for me to change my. It's like when you accidentally like one of your ex's like photos on
Oh my
Instagram.
God.
2017, and you're like, if I just delete my social media, change my name, move out of the country,
Yeah.
cut my hands off, then that'll probably
It's
be.
the only way. It's the only way. I do want to return to Richard and ask about the sex that you just mentioned there, because that was one thing that I found really intriguing, is that with I read a lot of affair novels, Hattie. I love an affair, as I've said, but with a lot of affair novels, the sex can be quite, exhilarating or exciting, or, it's something that they've fantasized about for ages, and then when it happens, it's like the most amazing thing ever. But that wasn't the case with the sex that they're having. It wasn't that it was always bad. It's just that when she first has sex with him, she's almost like disappointed, and she's confused by that disappointment because it's obviously unexpected. Why did you want to write about the sex in this way?
Well, I think firstly because that's just how it would be. I
You
think
build it up in your head.
something up massively in your head. So the more you build it up in your head, the more disappointing it's going to
Yeah.
be. Generally, is a rule. I think also it was quite an important way to kind of show where Charlie has power, because she
Mm.
has power over Richard sexually because she is beautiful and young, and he's very attracted to that, and he is, not beautiful and young. He's kind of gross. So I mean, I had to make him a bit more gross in the edits, actually. Like my wonderful editor, Charlotte, when I submitted the book, she was like, this is great. Hardly any changes, but can you make the sex less gross? Because at the moment it's so gross. It's unbelievable. Um, but yeah, it kind of allows, so it's where I get to show Richard kind of take him down a peg or two. So we kind of actually see the reality of him versus what Charlie sees of him. So it's the only time that she can really see him for what he is.
Hmm.
Can't really see him for the manipulative, coercive, unkind man that he can often be. But also I think, kind of sex and intimacy is a brilliant kind of way to show characters and show what's going on, to see the
100%.
this moment. And I think that sex, when written well, can be incredibly powerful. I think that Sally Rooney has shown us what you can do with sex that tells a story and can also be erotic and beautiful. So yeah, there was a lot of that. I think yeah, I think it's also just quite interesting, isn't it, that when she fantasizes about him, she has like a great time, and it's just in the flesh. She just doesn't really like it. But also it kind of allows me to kind of explore this idea of kind of sexual trauma and the impact
Yeah.
that has on Charlie, in this, first real relationship where, this is for Charlie's, I mean, it's a terrible relationship, but it's still Charlie's first relationship where
Yeah.
someone tried to understand her and talk to her and connect with her sexually. And yeah, I think the sex kind of allowed us to kind of unpick a bit of what Charlie had been through.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right, it does tell us so much about a character, the sort of sex and intimacy and how they feel in those moments. It tells us so much about them. And I think what was so interesting is looking at it from an outsider's perspective. I've been in relationships that other people knew that weren't right for me and knew that person wasn't right for me, but when you're in them, you don't understand that, and you're totally blinded by all the sort of good aspects, and the good aspects don't even necessarily need to be anything amazing, but you'll take anything and run with it.
Lies we tell ourselves, honestly, it doesn't get any better.
No.
We get it's still just kind of telling yourself lies about people because you want to believe that, And I think also it's like, with Charlie, like she gets to a point where she's told Richard all of the terrible stuff that's happened to her, and that makes her really vulnerable. She doesn't want to go and have those conversations again. She's
Yeah.
done that. She's found someone that she can tell that stuff to. Yeah, poor Charlie.
Yeah, I think it's hard as well, that she's had those conversations with him, and also that he sees a part of her that she's not necessarily delved into before she sees it. And then you're like, oh, well, this person sees me. And that's, I've not been necessarily seen like this before. Or, she definitely was seen by her mum, but her mum's no longer there. So I think, there's that attraction there. Well, I'm seen by this person and I want to stay with this. It's safe. But he's not good for her. You mentioned Sally Rooney, and if somebody brings up Sally Rooney to me, I have to jump on that. So sorry about that, but I absolutely love her. She's one of my favourite writers. And when I was reading this book, I was trying to think about who would be the writer for me, or who would be, the famous person for me that I think I'd categorically lose my mind over. And I think I'd combust if I met Sally Rooney. That whole idea of don't meet your heroes, I think it would have to be with her, because I know I'd just make an absolute embarrassment of myself. Is there anyone that you feel, or would you rather not say?
What writer wise?
It can be anyone. It can be anyone.
Oh, I mean, like actors, I can't talk to actors. I'm terrible. I mean, I've got a few friends that are actors and I've never seen them in anything, so that's fine. But like when I actually meet somebody, I'm totally, totally hopeless. Writers wise, I don't think there's any. I mean, I would almost certainly make a fool of myself in front of Sally Rooney. I would almost certainly make a fool out of myself in front of Lauren Groff and probably Max Porter. I would
Yeah.
probably, yeah, I'm not smart enough to talk to any of those people.
Honestly, I listen to Sally Rooney talk and I'm like, I don't know what I'd say to you that would be of substance. Like,
Yeah, she's quite extraordinary brain, isn't she?
honestly, incredible. Absolutely incredible. I
And
mean,
Max Porter as well. Like what I love about Max and Sally is not only do they write brilliant books, obviously highly literary, but also incredibly accessible,
yeah.
but it is their activism.
Yes,
And
100%.
how they are setting an example for all of us as writers and creatives for what we can do and what we should be doing
Yeah.
and where we should be drawing the line. And it's hard when you're a writer because you're constantly having to write for papers that you don't agree with, or kind of push books through channels that aren't necessarily that align with your ethics. There's all sorts of stuff going on, and I try to write about it in a way I can, and I try to use the platforms that I have. Just written a big Substack today, which kind of gets into societal and political stuff in a way that I've never really found the confidence to do. And all of it is because of writers like Sally and Max and Nikesh Shukla, who's an amazing writer and kind of my mentor.
Yes.
And the way these people are being outspoken and talking out about things, and not, Sally like can't come to the UK anymore because
It's
she's told to
mental.
probably be arrested for supporting Palestine Action. One of the greatest living writers cannot enter the UK. And obviously, she is incredibly famous and has wonderful book sales and money and a platform to be able to have the security to kind of do those things. And a lot of us writers don't have that yet, and we're building to a point where we hope we do. But yeah, writers like that kind of really really lead the way in terms of kind of their social activism and political activism as well as writing well. That's who I fall apart with.
Yeah, valid. I saw something the other day that it made me laugh, but like in a really uncomfortable way of just like, how the fuck have we got to this point? In terms of like censorship, essentially. But it was about Sally and what she's done, and it was like, so let me just get this straight. Sally Rooney, really popular, famous, incredible author who pretty much is fairly quiet and keeps to herself, doesn't have social media platforms, whatever, is has potentially been arrested for checks notes terrorism. And it's like, what the fuck? How are we at this point? Mind blowing.
And what is the role of artists and creatives in changing it? I think that's what's really key.
Absolutely.
When we live in a system where anything we write generally takes a year to 2 years to be published, once it's delivered and finished, it's very hard to write in a way that can keep up possibly with what is going on politically and socially. So how do we use power and influence outside of that, whether it's Substack, writing pieces for the press, using our social media channels? I think as writers, we really do have a responsibility. Marian
Yeah.
Keyes is amazing as well. I mean, I worked with her a lot. I think she's one of the most
God.
wonderful women and writers in the world. And she is also using her platform to be really outspoken on what's going on in Palestine. And what a woman Marian is.
I am going to say something now that is going to get me absolutely hung, drawn, and quartered. I am obsessed with Marianne Keyes and have listened to so many interviews that she's given. She just makes me laugh so much, and I think she's incredible. Haven't read a single one of her books yet.
Just go and buy Rachel's Holiday. Like,
I've got it on my shelf. Tell me why I've not read it yet. Tell me why I've got Rachel's Holiday. I've got Grown Ups. I haven't read her.
yeah.
Awful. I don't know why I've not. And yeah, it's shocking. But speaking of, sorry, what were you going to say?
Marian's books are healing. They're good for the soul. They
Well,
just make
this is what I wanted to ask you because this is one of the things that I absolutely loved in the book. I loved your exploration of Charlie sort of building this relationship with her stepmom. And I think, relationships with step parents are so difficult. And, I've been through that experience both with my stepdad and my stepmom. And it's really healing when you manage to find sort of common ground with them. And how Charlie finds common ground with her stepmom is, I mean, first of all, she cooks these really nice meals for her, which is, you can win me over with food anytime, but also with books. And she encourages her to try other authors that she's not necessarily gone for before. And one of them is Marianne Keyes. And she talks about finding sort of solace with Marianne Keyes. And I really wanted to ask you what writers bring you solace and comfort.
Marian Keyes.
Perfect.
Marian Keyes brings me a great deal of comfort. Max Porter brings me a great deal of comfort because he's so kind in his writing. His books are very kind, and he makes me just feel better about men and their in the world.
Valid.
Yeah, I mean, Sally always makes me feel better. I will often go back and comfort read a Judy Blume
Oh,
book,
I love that.
which I read a lot when I was younger. I take a great deal of comfort in poetry as well. Just the classics like Larkin, Hughes, yeah, Seamus Heaney. So yeah, those kind of places. But yeah, it's often the books that kind of surprise you out of nowhere, like this book, Ordinary Saints I'm reading. I'm really escaping into that book and finding comfort and love in the kind of portrayal of present day North East London where I live. And it just makes me feel better about London. What about you?
I am 100% a Sally Rooney girl. I love her, and I'm not a massive rereader, but I have gone back and reread Conversations with Friends. I think there was just something about how she explored mental health and just the mind of
Yeah.
that young female protagonist. It just was something that I could really relate to. And I don't think a writer had made me feel like that up until that point. I'd always loved Jodie Picoult when I was younger. I loved Jacqueline Wilson growing up, and I loved Jodie Picoult, and those are the writers that I just could get completely lost in their worlds. And Jacqueline Wilson as a young person made me feel really seen in somebody that was in like a very complicated family dynamic. I think she wrote all of that really well.
Yeah.
So I think when I think back to Jacqueline Wilson, she's, one person for me. Sally Rooney is like my adult person that I'm just unbelievably excited whenever there's a new book from her to get lost in her world. I'm trying to think now. Honestly, it sounds very biased, but my friend Emma Hines is an author, and I just think she is just such an incredible writer. And I'm in a really privileged position that I knew her before her books were published. She's about to have her third book published, but we met. I was an actor in one of her plays, and I just really connected to her writing, and I was like, how are you not like a world famous person yet? And then now to have watched her sort of trajectory is just so inspirational, because her writing has brought me so much comfort and joy, and then to see other people getting to also experience that is just such a wonderful thing. So yeah, yeah.
I find that the theatre is incredibly comforting, actually. I go to the theatre a lot and I feel very, very comforted. I mean, unless it's bad theatre, and there's nothing worse than bad
No.
theatre. Like a bad book, bad movie, fine. Bad song, fine. Bad theatre,
You're stuck.
totally, totally unacceptable. But yeah, the theatre, I find something about when those lights go down and everybody just goes quiet at the same time and your phone,
100%.
you're just going to sit there. I find that to be a very, very soothing.
Definitely. Have you watched Inter Alia? Oh my God, it's they're doing NT Live at the moment. I don't know if it's still actually on at the National, but it's definitely doing its NT Live rounds at the minute. I went and watched it at the cinema,
Yeah.
and I was really I didn't know how that experience would be, but I've now watched Fleabag and Prima Facie and Inter Alia at the cinema, and it's worked. But Inter Alia is just incredible, and it is it Rosamund Pike? Is that how you say her name? Have I got that right? I was second guessing myself then, but she could have. It feels like she's just running the show. Like,
Courtroom one, right?
there's a few. What? Sorry.
Courtroom one where she's a judge or a barrister.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes, she's a judge, yeah. And it's just incredible, like the use of the space, the sort of choreography of the piece, her performance, like it's just incredible. Jodie Comer was amazing as well, but they're both by the same writer, Susie Miller. And
Yeah.
yeah, I was blown away by those, so would recommend. I wish I had more time with you, but I do want to finish by asking what is next for you.
Okay, so I am currently copy editing book two, so it's nearly done. Book two is called Beginning, Middle, End. It follows a young couple. It's split between her point of view and his point of view, from the age of kind of 18 to 25, and examines the beginning, middle, end of their relationship. And it's about class and the arts and the theatre and creativity, but it's also really a book about alcoholism and mental health and the cycles within families that we can escape and the ones that we can't break. So I'm really excited about that book, and I am in the process of writing my third book. There's some screenwriting stuff kind of going on in the background as well, like various projects. And then yeah, I'm writing my Substack every week. So if anybody's enjoyed this, then please do come and see that, because I put a lot into those pieces, and I really care about the writing quality of what I'm doing over there. So those are the main things. I'm also working on a play with a friend, trying to write a
Oh
play.
my God.
So yeah, and then I'm doing a bit of journalism alongside of that for the Times. I write about parenting for the Times sometimes. So yeah.
Oh my God, incredible. I need this play to happen. I need to see it. I mean, I want to be in it because
Yeah.
I love your writing so much. And I highly recommend for anyone that hasn't found your Substack yet to go and sign up to it. It is free, and it feels like such a privilege to be able to get that writing for free. I think you write so beautifully on there. I will link my favorite one in the show notes for people to find it. I did say that was the last question, but I do like to finish by asking for a recommendation. So is there any recommendations you have for the listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I love a recommendation, but I'm going to go with something. I'm going to recommend a TV show.
Amazing.
I'm
Great.
going to recommend my favorite TV show of all time ever, which is called The Leftovers. And it is on HBO. It's 3 seasons. Each season is kind of very contained within itself, and it stars Justin Theroux and Carrie Coon and Margaret Qualley and loads of amazing people. And it is about the world after 1% of the population just disappears. But it's not really about what's happened to them. It's about the impact of these losses on society when nobody knows what's happened. It's never explained. It is just an arc following this family, following this character of Kevin Garvey, who is played by Justin Theroux, who also has psychosis, and he's a police chief. It's about the kind of the cults that rise up in this slightly damaged world. But yeah, it's ultimately there is something so atmospheric about it, and it for me, nobody has portrayed grief on the screen in the way that they do in this show. And yet none of them really are directly grieving. It's about this overall feeling of grief,
Mm.
mass grief on a mass scale where this thing has happened and nobody can understand why. So it's absolutely beautiful. The Leftovers, I think you can get it all on Now TV in the UK and on Amazon Prime. 3 seasons, the most perfect ending. Every single plot line tied up with a bow. So satisfying, gorgeous, wonderful, smart writing, cerebral, funny, getting it.
Oh my God, I need to watch this like right now.
I love
I
it.
don't want to go to work today. I'm just gonna sack that off, call in sick, and watch that. How have I not watched this yet? That sounds incredible.
Really weird. It's kind of a culty show. I think it like started 10 years ago. And it's like either you talk to people about it and they will just talk to you about nothing but the leftovers, or people haven't really seen it. But I think more people keep finding it. I think, yeah, I think it's just something that people keep discovering, and they will keep discovering because it's so timeless.
Oh my God, I love that. I think it's so special when you find something after the fact. I heard so much about the BBC series The Split, and I hadn't
Yeah.
watched it. And then I came to that. Me and my boyfriend, finished watching that a couple of weeks ago, and we flew through the seasons of that.
Yeah, isn't it?
So good. It's just
Brave
another
New
one of
Girls.
those.
You've seen that. That's a
What
Brave New Girls. It's another BBC thing like that's just been flying under the radar, and I've just eaten up 2 seasons in a week. Brave New Girls.
Brave New Girls. I've got that
Sorry,
saved.
sorry.
Yes.
Such brave girls. I'm getting the name wrong.
Such brave.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes, I've got that saved. That sounds great. Oh my God, thank you so much. I have absolutely loved chatting to you, and I could have chatted to you for much longer, but hopefully I can nab you back for the next book. Are
Oh,
pre-orders
lovely to.
open for that?
Not yet,
Not yet.
but the you can buy the hardback of Bittersweet. Well, it's also available in ebook, audiobook. It's a brilliant audiobook read by Rosie Sheehy, one of my favorite actors. So yeah, ebook, audiobook, hardback. It's out there.
Amazing. And links are in the show notes for those. Thank you so much for joining me today, Hattie. I will be linking your Substack, your socials, and everything else that the listeners need. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been such a joy.
So much. Thank you.
And thank you, listeners, for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. And if you want to give us a follow, you can do so at A Pair of Bookends Pod on Instagram and at A Pair of Bookends on Twitter and TikTok. Go buy your copies of Bittersweet. Come chat to me about them. And thanks again for listening. Bye.